Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Here's a story of how I slept in a dead woman's bed for a couple years and didn't realize that was the reason I had been haunted for a while. My boyfriend, who is now my husband, and I had been dating for a little bit. He had rented a room in a woman's house because, mortgages in LA aren't cheap. She used to live with her sister, who had died of cancer, and she'd kind of nursed her while she was at the house. And unfortunately, after her sister died, she couldn't really afford to live there by herself. So my husband rented a room. And then this roommate got pregnant and was planning to raise the baby by herself. No big deal, whatever. So she definitely really needed that extra income. So we were waiting for the baby to come. I was helping her set up his room. Everything was fine, nothing weird. And she asked if my husband could move from the guest room into basically it's like the den, but it was huge. Nobody ever went in there. It had a fireplace. It was really nice. It had a bar. And because she wanted that guest room for the baby, right next to her room. Makes sense. Also, like, yes, I would like to move from the room that was right next to her room, just, for privacy's sake. So he moved over there, and she said, "Oh, hey, I have an extra bed in the garage. Do you want it?" And he was like, "Oh, sure," because it was a bigger bed than the one he had. I think it was like a king size or something. So we moved the bed into the den when we did all the swapping of rooms and everything. Eventually, the roommate went to labor, and that's when things started getting weird. I don't know if people remember those perpetual motion things. So it was like something that like you hit it and it like just keeps moving. It's like battery powered or whatever. The day she ends up going to the hospital, we flick the little dolphin, which because she really loved dolphins. Her sister was big on dolphins, and so that was in the den where we were, living. I wasn't there all the time. Just every now and then I would sleep a couple nights a week. So, we flicked that little dolphin thing and it just continually moved and moved. And as the days passed, she ended up needing a C-section, an emergency C-section. So she was in the hospital for like a good 3-4 days. And the entire time she was in the hospital, the little dolphin was still going around and around and around. And we were like, wow, that's crazy. Like, that thing works really well. And she finally came home and the dolphin stopped. And we were like, let's check out the batteries on this bad boy. And yeah, the batteries had been removed, so it was just moving on its own while she was gone. Nobody else was there to mess with it. It was just us. So we're like, oh, that's weird. But anyway, so once we got settled with the baby and everything, that's when things started getting kind of ramped up. There was a big like decorative fan over the bed in the new room that we were in, and it was constantly, you'd hear it tapping. And we're like, oh, maybe it's like a breeze or something. No, there was no vents, no windows, nothing to make it do that. And we're like, ooh, that's weird. On that fan, dolphins. We're like, okay, all right, we see. And that was when I started getting visited at night by this shadow person standing next to my side of the bed. And for the longest time, I thought it was just my boyfriend. I don't know why. I thought like he's a huge, like 6'3", like 300-pound dude. And this was just a slim shadow just standing next to the bed. And I thought, maybe he's just over there going to get something from the closet or the dresser that was right next to me. Eventually, at one point, I said, "Babe, what are you doing? What do you need?" And that's when I heard him snoring on the other side of me. Yeah, so that sucked. And that happened a lot. And, whatever. I'd hoped it was maybe my boyfriend's dad who'd passed away when he was 19. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my thinking was. So that's also about the time any photos taken with your point and shoot, your digital cameras back in 2002, any photos would end up being, there'd be orbs in like all the pictures where there are dolphins. There's a lot of dolphins in that house because, family love dolphins. And whenever the baby was in a photo, orbs everywhere. It's like bananas because you're like, what the heck? Oh my God. Like, so that's when we started thinking, like, okay, so the sister who died really liked dolphins and never got to meet her nephew. And all this stuff started when the baby came home and when we moved that bed out of the garage into the den. So, whatever, we just chalked it up to maybe the sister's here watching over the baby. Whatever. So, you'd hear like there's always somebody standing next to my bed at night, constantly. And eventually my boyfriend and I move into a place of our own. We bring the bed and everything still happens. There's still somebody standing next to my bed. Sometimes it'd be leaning over me, just like, breathing in the essence of a girl who just wants some friggin' sleep. And please save me. It was terrible. And at that point, I just got used to it. And I was like, this is my life now. I guess I'm just going to be haunted forever because that's just my life. And my boyfriend never saw it. He never heard the things. He never saw the thing. He would see my reaction when I would freak out and go immediately run over to his side of the bed. Not run, but, like roll over. When the things would come, he'd feel me pulling the covers over my head. It was just a long torment of this stupid thing standing next to my side of the bed. It was literally years after we moved into that bed and then moved the bed into our place. That bed came with us to 2 different locations, I think. And the thing followed us every time. And then finally we get married. We got gifts for, money gifts. And we're like, let's buy a new bed. We deserve it. And so we buy a new bed. We get rid of the old one. And the thing stopped coming to my side of the bed. And after a while, I was like, wow, thank God, now that's gone. And then I asked my husband, I'm like, hey, do you know where this bed came from? The bed that we just got rid of? Because I start putting, 7 and 7 together. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's the whole trigger here. Because I'm an idiot. It took me a really long time. It was like 3 years. And he was like, oh, yeah, I think it was Carol's bed. And I'm like, Carol? Like Maggie's sister, Carol? His roommate was Maggie. And he's like, yeah, it was Carol's bed. And I was like, her bed at the house? And he was like, yeah. It was like the bed that she died in. And he was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, oh, wow. Yeah, that she died in that bed. I'm like, okay. Sure wish I'd realized that a long time ago. But, yeah, so that's how I ended up sleeping in a bed a woman died in for a couple years. And I was haunted by something standing/leaning over me for a solid 3 years. And how it all started with a baby being born into a house where a person died. And, the gift that keeps on giving, a haunted bed that your boyfriend forgot to tell you person had died in. And that's my story. Wonderful. Yeah, we don't have, we've now moved on to a new bed and not haunted as much by that ghost. There's been others. I think my youngest is like haunted. But yeah, so that's my story of how I slept in a dead person's bed. Thanks, babe.